who have shown interest in attending this orientation session on National Innovation and Startup Policy. This is a IIC calendar activity for the quarterly 2. The National Innovation Startup Policy 2019 was launched on 11th September 2019 for the institutions of national importance, autonomous institutions, technical, non-technical institutions, central universities, and all institutions offering higher education. In the country, there are about more than 41,000 higher education institutions presently, but the number of startup activities are very, very minimal. If the institution needs to become one of the leading institutions in the world, all the stakeholders involved in this ecosystem, especially the students, faculty, and the staffs, must behave as an entrepreneur. This National Institutional Startup Policy provides a broad guidelines for the higher education institutions, which is suitable for all the stakeholders. The vision: India aspires to become a $5 trillion economy by 2024. To evolve systems and mechanisms, we have to convert the present demographic dividend into high quality technical human resources who are capable of doing cutting edge research and innovations and deep technical entrepreneurship. The National Institutional Innovation Startup Policy for higher education institution is a guiding framework to envision this. This orientation session is to enhance the entrepreneurial mindset of the students and the faculty. The recommendations and the guiding principle will also help the higher education institutions in creating their own policy framework if required. In the National Institutional Innovation Startup Policy for higher education institutions, there are about 10 attributes, that is the trustee areas, which is present here. In the today's orientation session, we are going to discuss one by one. Before we proceed with, one thing should be very, very clear. That is, the innovation and the entrepreneurship is not a discipline specific, nor it is a sector specific. It is across the sectors and it is an interdisciplinary. Because in an institution, there will be number of departments, number of faculty, students. So there should be an interdisciplinary thought process in evolving this strategy. Let us see the attributes one by one. So it is about the first attribute is about the higher education institutions, strategy and governance for promoting innovation and entrepreneurship. Then creating innovation pipeline and pathways for the entrepreneur, building organizational capacity, human resources, incentives, collaboration, co-creation and business relations and knowledge exchange. It also has given a broad guidelines on the norms for the faculty and the students driven innovation and startup policies, incubation and pre-incubation support, which is needed for the budding entrepreneurs, and the faculty and students involvement in the as a entrepreneurship, and all about the IPR, just the ownership rights for the technical development at the higher education institution, and the different norms for the faculty who are involved in the startup, who are a part of the institution, who are involved either full-time or part-time in the startup policy, pedagogy and learning interventions for supporting innovations and startup. First, let us see the strategies and governance of the higher education institution. The entrepreneurship promotion and development should be one of the major dimensions of the higher education strategy. To facilitate this development of entrepreneurship ecosystem in the organization, specific objectives and associated performance indicators should be defined for the assessment. Immediately, when a person thinks about a startup, one thing which immediately comes into our mind is the fund or the money required for the startup. It is a very basic question. But this should not be a mind block for any aspiring individual who wanted to become an entrepreneur or startup. Hence, the National Innovation Institutional Startup Policy has given a broad guidelines and given a framework for dealing with this. It has clearly mentioned that the institution is expected to work for resource mobilization. It can be within the college institution or it can be from the nearby institution, getting support from the external agencies, but they should work on the resource mobilization for supporting pre-incubation, incubation infrastructure, and all the other supporting facilities. Let us see in depth. Each and every institution, that is a higher education institution, are expected to allocate at least a minimum of 1% of fund the total annual budget for the institution towards this innovation startup policy. And besides, because it is not that easy, all institutions may not be able to spend a huge amount on this aspects. And that's why the MHRD as well as the other government agencies are now insisting the institutions to start with a pre-incubation center. If an institution has already set up an incubation center, it's fine. If an institution has already set up, it is fine. They can proceed with, because it involves a lot of money, lot of resources, facilities to be created to support all these things for the students and faculty. But if an institution has not yet started the incubation center so far, instead they can go for a pre-incubation center where the resources are, at least it is like a pre-incubation is like learning before we start an incubation center. So to get an idea what actually has to be done, what is the amount of resources we have to facilitate for the budding startup or entrepreneurs. So we can just visit the nearby incubation centers, how the policies are made, how the startup activities are being carried out at that institution, and we can start our own pre-incubation unit with all the required facilities, and slowly once we gain the required knowledge, then we can proceed or we can start with the incubation. So this is only for the new institution. So ours is one of the institution which is more than 25 years old. So we are working on all these aspects. The management is also spending a huge amount on the projects. I will also brief you about the institution contribution towards this. And the next is, this is only one person. The next is, we need to have a strategy. That is, we can have a strategy, institution level strategy, such that we can get we can get the support from the different external funding, like the state government, central government, such as DST, DBT, MHRD, AICTE, TDB, CSIR, DSIR, and other different Startup India. There are so many agencies, government and central government and state government agencies are also there, like MSME, MST, all those things. And from non-government sources also, we can raise the funds required for the starting up of this pre-incubation centers or the incubation centers. So for which we need to have a proper strategy. So being faculty members can also concentrate on having a strategy on how to get the funding from the external agencies for this purpose. And next is, there is a term called as corporate social responsibility. I think everybody will be knowing CSR. As per the section 135 of the Company Act 2013, we can also generate fund from the private and corporate sectors through the CSR activities. Thereby, we can get the funding from them to support the technology. The incubators and the academic institutions may approach the private and the corporate sectors and get the required funding. And next is the sponsorship and donations. The National Innovation and Startup Policy has also mentioned clearly that the institution also can raise or seek sponsorship and donations for this incubation center. As I told you, it involves a lot of resources, a lot of funding is required, a lot of planning, a lot of human resources are required, so which can also be built with the help of sponsorship and donations. Then to have an individual autonomy and ownership of initiatives, first of all, dissemination of about this program has to be clearly made at the institution level, each and every student, faculty, staffs, and it is not for the students alone. Most of the time it is wrongly understood that entrepreneurship, a startup is meant only for the students and not for any faculty or staffs. It is not so. Even faculty members who are already working in an organization, institution, can also go for a startup or become an entrepreneur. There is a different term. It is also called as intrapreneur, who are working already and also wanted to become an entrepreneur. So to have an autonomy, first of all, the information has to be disseminated properly among the stakeholders. That is mainly the students, the faculty, the staffs, the higher education institutions. So the importance of the innovation and entrepreneurship agenda should be known across the institution, and individual autonomy and ownership of this startup has to be initiated. The importance of this innovation entrepreneurial agenda, the formulation has to be formulated at the university level, and it should be available for all the stakeholders. The main purpose of this policy is to make the product to reach the market with a strategy for startups. And micro action plan is also required at the institution level to accomplish the policy objectives. The second attribute is the startup enabling institutional infrastructure. As I mentioned already, pre-incubation or the incubation facilities has to be set up. So it is clear that a new institution who aspires to start an incubation center can immediately start a pre-incubation center, and all the basic facilities can be made available for all the stakeholders, and the external funding, external incubation units can be contacted. Preliminary works can be carried out from that incubation centers before we start with the incubation unit for our own institution. Now, for nurturing innovations and startup in the higher education institutions, a creation of pre-incubation and incubation facilities are a must. Incubation and innovation need to be actually properly interlinked. Without innovations, new enterprises are unlikely to succeed. So we all know that. So the goal of the effort is to be innovation to enterprises and enterprises to the financial success. So here we can create in all higher education institutions. This can be accomplished by number of ways. The first one is the IIC, Institutional Innovation Council. So this program is in fact organized through our Institution Innovation Council, as you are aware of it. It's formed as per the guidelines of MHRD Innovation Cell, and number of programs are being conducted. There are number of calendar activities are being conducted, and this is also one of the calendar activity. So through these programs, the stakeholders have to be informed, disseminated about the startup ideas, the programs, the courses being conducted to gain the knowledge. So there are different cells similarly, that is like New Gen IEDC, the innovation cell, startup cell. And through these, we have to mobilize the resources from the internal and external sources. And the National Innovation Startup Policy also has recommended that the incubation the technology commercialization unit should be separately registered under the Section 8 of Companies Act 2013. They wanted this to be a separate unit, not combined with any other unit, because normally institutions will have an incubation center. And here it is regarding the commercialization. Sometimes they will have an incubation center. They used to have a startup, but sometimes they go register for patents, but it will get stopped there. So the main objective is to commercialize. The main success of this is the financial success. So the National Innovation and Startup Policy has clearly mentioned that it recommends to start an incubation cum technology commercialization unit at the institution level, and it should be properly registered. Also, the higher education institutions are asked to or requested to monitor and provide all the relevant services for the pre-incubation or incubation units in return of fees. And it should function, that is the pre-incubation or the incubation facility should be accessible 24/7 to the students, staffs, and the faculty of all disciplines and departments across the institution. There should not be any limitations in using the resources. It should be always open, kept open, so that the budding entrepreneurs can make use of the facilities. The pre-incubation facilities may or may not be a separately registered entity, but as I told you, this incubation cum technology commercialization unit must be a separate unit. So as our institution is an education institution, as per the Company Act 2013, can be registered. So needs proper mentoring and also the other relevant support services to be provided. The next attribute is the nurturing innovations and startups. Higher education institutions are expected to establish a process and mechanism for easy creation and nurturing of startups enterprises by the students. Here, it is not only limited to the UG students, it is for UG, PG, and PhD students. Because the main vision of the country is to attain that 24,000, it is to attain the $5 trillion economy by 2024. So to achieve that, all those involved in the ecosystem must start behaving as an entrepreneur. So that is the main objective of this National Innovation Startup Policy. So here, the higher education institutions are expected to establish a process and mechanism for easy creation and nurturing of startups. So it is applied for students, staffs, temporary staffs, project staffs, alumni, potential startup applicants, and even from outside the institutions. It is not limited for the institution. Even we can permit aspiring people from the outside the institutions, maybe at some fees, they may be permitted into the institution. And while defining their process, institution has to ensure the following. So these are the guidelines given by the National Innovation Startup Policy. First is the incubation support. As I told you already, the support, the guidance, the financial support required are the important aspects. So the incubation or the pre-incubation facility, which is set for the students and staff, should be acceptable time frame. So before arriving at the framework at the institution level can be discussed, and it should be arrived such that it should be within the time frame, and also all the support, incubation support, should be accessible by all the stakeholders. And it should allow licensing of IPR from institute to startup. Also allow setting up a startup can also have a social status and working part-time for these startups while studying or working, because this framework is mainly for the students, faculty or staffs who are working in the institution or who are studying a course in an institution. So they can involve themselves in a part-time or full-time or spend some time on for working on this. So there are different norms given by the National Institution Innovation Startup Policy, so which has to be permitted. And if you see about this, there are a number of interesting things in our institution. This policy also talks about the support to be given for the students as well as the faculty members, because everybody cannot become a startup, or everybody cannot become an entrepreneur. The interest, the attitude for starting it, and also the support required is a very important aspect. You see here, a student or a faculty who is involved in this may work beyond the working hours. They will require a lot of time. They need to meet a lot of resource persons. And in that aspects, the National Institute Innovation Startup Policy guidelines have given that certain changes in the curriculum can be made, like a student at the UG or PG level, if he aspires to start up, become an entrepreneur, he wanted to start up, maybe the 7th or 8th semester, he may be exempted from the project. He is not required to do a project, the final year project or a mini project. He may be exempted from that. And sometimes if he does not have a required attendance, that may be considered. Certain considerations may be given for this, because he is into the entrepreneur. He has to meet lot of persons outside. He has to discuss. He cannot be fully involved in the regular academic courses. So he can be. So those are the guidelines given by the National Institution Innovation Startup Policy. In fact, because our institution is an autonomous institution, in the regulation 2019, in our institution, all these have been incorporated. So regulation 2019, in fact, has all these changes. That is, a student, if he is able to make a startup, then he will be exempted from doing a major or minor projects or summer trainings. So this is one of the important aspects. And similarly, he may also, sometimes the students may also need some break in between the course. So now the regulation 2019 has fully supported for all these activities. So now students can make use of this facilities. Similarly, faculty members also, they require a semester break or year break. They can also work on it to ensure that they are successful entrepreneurs. And next is on the product ownership right for the technologies developed at the institute. So this is all about the intellectual property rights, the license, the product, or the commercialization aspects of it, and the upfront fees or one-time technology transfer fees, the royalty, everything are discussed here in this aspect. The institutional IPR cell or the incubation center can also be set with a coordinator for it. In fact, the role of the coordinator will be mainly in coordinating. He or she may not be fully involved in on the discussions on the type of product which has to be patented or for commercialization. He or she is going to coordinate with the aspects. And the main aspects of this is the interdisciplinary research and publication on the startup, and the entrepreneurship is one of the major aspects of this. An institution is allowed for the equity as per the current status, and one or more inventors, maybe from an institution, from the industry, and uh, individual as an individual, can together contribute for this, and the royalties would be not more than 4% of the sales. All these details are clearly given in the National Innovation Startup Policy. See, the policy is readily available in the FMHRD website. Anybody who is interested can also go through the entire policy for better understanding. Now, this institution IPR cell or the incubation center will one be a coordinator and facilitator for providing the required services to the faculty, staffs, and the students. And if there is a dispute in the ownership, a minimum 5-member committee may be constituted at the institution level for sorting out it. Next is on the organizational capacity, human resources, and the incentives. So, the NISP, that is the National Institutional Innovation Startup Policy, has clearly given the framework, the guidance that each and every higher education institute should have a separate faculty, recruit faculty with a strong innovation and entrepreneurship knowledge. They may be from industry, or they may possess industrial experience, and very important thing is their aptitude and behavior towards the entrepreneurship. This will in fact foster the innovation and entrepreneurship culture in the higher education institution. Some of the relevant faculty members with prior exposure may be involved in it, and to achieve a better engagement of staffs in the entrepreneurial activities, the policy, the institutional policy on career development of staff also will be considered in the upskilling process. And periodically, some external subject matters experts such as the guest lectures, the alumni. In fact, in our institution, it is one of the uh, good policy we have. We are practicing good practice. We are doing here in the institution. All departments, they arrange for guest lectures, which is also called as core teaching, where industry experts come and deliver lecture in the institution. This is the departments, and also the alumni are also involved in it. We can see that most of the time the alumni, our own alumni, successful alumni will come interact with our own students. They give the strategic advice, they provide the strategic advice and bringing the skills which are required for the students, the budding entrepreneurs. So in fact, which is being practiced in our institution. And faculty and staff should be encouraged to do some courses. So on the faculty members as well as students, they have to show some interest, because as I said already, everybody are not going to become an entrepreneur. Who are really interested, who has clearly understood what is entrepreneurship, what are the risks involved in entrepreneurship. Most of the time they know only the benefits. What are the risks involved in the entrepreneurship, who are ready to take up the challenge, have to show interest on attending number of courses on innovation, entrepreneurship, management, and different venture programs, so that they can enhance their own skills. So also there can be the NISP policy has clearly mentioned that there can be some reward systems for the staffs who are involved in this, because they are not the regular faculty. There is always some difference between the regular faculty who are into managerial or teaching. Apart from that, staff or faculty members who has aspiring interest towards this entrepreneurship or startup have to be rewarded. Maybe they may be provided the leave, the OD on duty, or they can be given permission to use the lab spaces, etc. Similarly, the recognition for all the stakeholders who are involved in it. So the stakeholders mainly we are discussing here are the alumni, the students, faculty, the staff members, and higher education institutions where the other departments, because it is not a department or discipline specific. Also, a performance metric should be developed and used for the evaluation of annual performance. So, in fact, nowadays in the MHRD and the other agencies are working on including this parameter in the performance index or the performance appraisal of the faculty member, that whether they have contributed in the or guidance, provided any guidance for the students on the startup or the entrepreneurship activities, because this is the most wanted of the hour. And next is on the creating innovation pipeline and pathways for entrepreneurs at institutional level. So to ensure the exposure for maximum students to innovation and pre-incubation activities at their early stage, and to provide a pathway from ideation to innovation and innovation to market, and a mechanism has to be devised at the institution level, because so many times students will come out with lot of ideas, but ideation has to be made as innovation and it has to be taken to the market, that is financial success. As we have already discussed, financial success is the success of this startup or the entrepreneurial activities. So first of all, spreading awareness among the students. So first of all, students has to be given enough, like this innovation, this orientation session. Students, faculty and staffs have to be given awareness about this entrepreneurship. As I told you, the risk also has to be clearly mentioned, informed. The failure stories have to be clearly, we can connect the budding entrepreneurs with the real-time entrepreneurs. We can ask them to make, we can arrange for some interaction with them. We can also get the failure stories, what are the struggles they have, what are the challenges they have faced, so that to have a clear understanding of this. And students and staff must be taught that innovation is a mechanism to solve the problems of the society and consumers. As the vision of this National Innovation Startup Policy itself is that we have to achieve the $5 trillion economy by 2024. So it has to be understood by all the stakeholders in this ecosystem. So entrepreneurship should innovate with focus on the market. The Institution Innovation Council, as I've told you already, through that only we are conducting this program. See the IIC, the clubs, the number of departments have got so many clubs for their own department. There are so many clubs for the institution level. So the clubs, the innovation council, institution innovation councils, other business incubation facilities, external facilities. As I told you, it can be, we can also get the guidance from the nearby external incubation centers also, from the network units, from the alumni, and all these agencies. We can involve all these things in the spreading the awareness and training the budding entrepreneurs, creating an awareness among all the stakeholders involved in this ecosystems. To prepare the students for creating the startup through education, integration of education activities, the enterprise has to be made, and only then the success of this program will happen. And networking of events is a very, very important aspect, because the budding entrepreneurs has to meet the investors and pitch their ideas. So for which number of networking events has to be organized. So the faculty members, institution, higher education institutions, all the senior faculty members are requested to create this networking environment, such that the budding engineers will have an experience, will have a chance to meet the investors and pitch their ideas. So these are the guidelines given by the National Innovation Startup Policy. And the other laboratory facilities, As I told you, it can be external facilities, it can be internal facilities, and the ideas, and also we can have a ready reckoner for the innovation toolkit, so that at any point of time there will not be any limitation for the on the access of the facilities. And the next attribute is about the norms for faculty startups. So for better coordination of the entrepreneurial activities, the norms for the faculty to do startups should be created at the institution level. Because as I said in the beginning, it is not that only the students are involved in the startup or become an entrepreneur. The National Institution Innovation Startup Policy has clearly mentioned that not only the students, the faculty, the staffs, either full-time or part-time, whoever it is, temporary staffs, anybody who has an interest towards starting of entrepreneurship can be involved in this process. Only when everybody involved in this ecosystem starts behaving as an entrepreneur, it becomes a clear success. So the roles and the responsibilities of the faculty, as I said, it may vary from person to person, vary from one owner to a direct promoter, the mentor, the consultant, or onboard members of the startup. So it varies with people to people, but there should be a clear guidance. So now this NISP policy expects the institution to work on developing a policy on the conflict of interest. There will be always a conflict of interest. To sort out, there should be a clear policy. So the NISP has requested the higher education institutions to start this. And next is on the faculty startup. They said intrapreneur. Intrapreneur is a word, sometimes it is referred for people who are already working in an organization. Besides, they also try to become an entrepreneur. So faculty startup may consist of faculty members alone, or it may be along with the students, along with other faculty members, with an alumni, or with any other entrepreneurs. So it can happen any of the times. So their staff members are involved in different managerial levels. They are acting as a counselors, administrators. So the norms for the faculty startups are clearly given in the National Innovation Startup Policy. And the next is the pedagogy and learning interventions for the entrepreneurship development. Diversified approach should be adopted to produce the desirable learning outcomes, which has to be a cross-disciplinary because it is not a discipline specific. And the mentor systems, the labs, the case studies, gaming, etc. has to be like the traditional system. Along with the traditional system, new pedagogical activities, interventions has to be made available in the institution. So faculty members are also there. So we have to develop lot of new pedagogical activities to make these startup and the entrepreneurial development activities to the students level. So it can be through games, it can be through case studies, we can direct mentors, softwares, and in fact we can use the clubs. As I said already, the students clubs. There are a number of clubs. Even in the AAA department, we have 5 clubs. In other departments also have got so many clubs for the department. And institution level, there are so many clubs. So through these clubs, the departments, the institution can initiate or do all these programs under these clubs activities also. And these bodies should be involved in the institutional strategy planning to ensure the enhancement of the students' thinking process as an entrepreneur. And next, the NISP also expects the institutions to have Innovation and Entrepreneurship Award to recognize the outstanding ideas, successful enterprises, and contributions for promoting innovation and enterprise ecosystem within the institution. Entrepreneurship education, in fact, even now the AICT has made lot of new changes that they can start. The budding entrepreneur can also do some courses, either part-time or full-time, on the entrepreneurship startups the technology transfer, IPR, etc. And it is fully supported by AICTE. And for creating awareness among the students, the teaching method should include several case studies, business failures, real life experience reports by the startups. And innovation champions should be nominated within the students and faculty, each department or the stream wise, so that it will encourage the budding entrepreneurs. And lot of pedagogical changes have to be made to make this process successful. An integration of expertise of the external stakeholders can be done with an external environment, as it is clearly mentioned in the policy that the nearby incubation centers can be contacted, the resources can be used. We can also share our resources to the other external members and to have a better integration and industry linkages. This industry linkage should be leveraged for conducting the research and survey on the different trends being followed in this market strategies. And student innovators, startups, experts must be engaged in the process while developing this strategy. So the customized teaching, the training material should be developed for these startups, and everyone should think that they are an entrepreneur. That is a very basic thing. And the next is on the collaboration, co-creation, business relationship, and knowledge exchange. Here, the stakeholders engage. If the stakeholders are the students, the faculty, staff, the alumni in the higher education institution. So the students, all the stakeholders must be given prime importance in the entrepreneurial agenda, and potential partners should be identified. So it can be a micro level, small or medium, MSMEs can be involved, social enterprises can be involved in it, alumni, the professional bodies, enterprises can be involved to support this entrepreneurship and co-design the programs. So co-creation and bi-directional flow, that is the exchange of knowledge and people, should be ensured between the institutions, between the incubation, the science parks. There are a number of science parks, research parks, the IITs have got research parks. So that sort of linkage should be made. Only then the successful collaboration, only the successful collaboration, co-creation can lead to the success of the enterprise. So it can be a formal, informal mechanism such as internship, teaching, research exchange programs, etc. Whatever can be. So to any means it has to be. There can also be some single point contacts, can be through clubs, exchange programs, external programs. And at last, the entrepreneurial impact assessment. The impact assessment of the institution's entrepreneurial initiatives such as the pre-incubation, incubation, entrepreneurship education should be performed regularly using some well-defined evaluation parameters, because end of the day, whatever work we do, it has to be properly assessed. So there should be a clear or a defined evaluation parameters to assess the impact of this entrepreneurial scheme. And there should be a monitoring and evaluation. So there are counselors in all departments, there are faculty members, senior faculty members who are involved in it. Besides, there are aspiring faculty who are much interested in this startup and entrepreneurial activity. So they can provide a lot of monitoring and evaluation support for this budding entrepreneurs. So number of startups, the supported system provided by the institution level, and satisfaction of participants is very, very important. As in the beginning I have mentioned, even though there are more than 41,000 higher education institutions in the country, the number of startup activities are very, very minimal. So this can be enhanced, because the outcome is that number of startups created has to be increased. Only then there is a success in this. So the number of startups created, the support provided, the feedback given by the startups or the entrepreneurs, the new business relations created at the institution level or the department level is very, very important in the assessment. And it should be measured. There should be proper rubrics so that it can be measured on the facilities like the pre-incubation facilities, the incubation facilities, and the IPR protection schemes at the institution level. And the formulation of strategy and impact assessment actually goes hand in hand. So the end of the thing, it should be uniform and it should be successfully implemented. That is the main success of this. So mainly it is for commercial success is the only measure for the long run. So to attain this, the National Institute Innovation and Startup Policy 2019 has given a clear guidance for the students and the faculty members. At the institution level, at our college, the management has given number of projects for the department. In fact, in our own triple department has got 2 projects funded fully by the management on solar as well as on wind. About 6 lakhs have been sponsored. So here, this type of projects, once students are involved in this type of projects, then they will have a clear idea on carrying out such projects. They can successfully carry out the project. They can understand the project, and that will help them to become a successful entrepreneur in the future. They will have good knowledge. They themselves are meeting the vendors. They are meeting the investors. They are meeting the different resource persons externally and internally. This type of project schemes are supported by our own institutions. And the detailed National Innovation Startup Policy is available in the MHRD website. Everybody are requested to please go through it thoroughly and become a successful entrepreneur and do a startup. Thank you all. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for attending this session.